QuickBooks Pro Desktop 2021. Sales by customer, account, and item graphs with the help and use of Excel. Let's get into it with Intuit's QuickBooks Pro Desktop 2021. Here we are in our Get Great Guitars practice file. We currently have the open windows open. You can open the open windows by going to the view dropdown, selecting the open windows list. We're now going to be creating graphs related to sales items. We will do so by exporting data to Excel in comparison and contrasting to what we did last time, which is generate the standard graphs within the QuickBooks system. Obviously, when we look at this, we're going to be taking data that will be supporting line items within the major financial accounts, that being the balance sheet and income statement. Our focus here on the income statement or profit and loss. Let's open that first. Reports drop down, company and financial. We want to open the profit and loss standard, changing the date up top from 01/01/21 to 02/28/21. We're focusing in up top on the income area, so income or revenue top line item area, breaking out that information. We can do so by account, as we see up top, but usually many companies don't have a lot of accounts involved, so it would be more interesting for us to break it out, say, by customer or by item. So let's look at those first. If I was to break this thing out by customer, we can look at the report data that would be supporting this number, broken out by who we sold to, rather than the account that we charged for it. So let's go to the reports drop down. We would then go to the sales item, which stands for revenue in this case. So sales by customer summary. Let's take a look at the sales by customer summary. Change the date up top from 01/01/21 to 02/28/21. And that's going to give us our information. We're at the 56,144 bottom line. If I was to go to the profit and loss, we're at the 56,524. We're off by, I believe, this adjusting entry. Let's just double check that. So we'll say this is the 56,524 minus, if I go to this item, the 56,144. 380 is the difference. If we double click on, I believe, the sales item, that is an adjusting entry down here. So you kind of want to note that, so that if someone asks you a question on why that doesn't tie out or something like that, you know what it is. We'll talk about the adjusting entries later when we do that portion of the practice problem. Now, QuickBooks does have like a pie chart related to this by default. So let's take a look at that now and see if we can reconstruct it in Excel in such a way that we have a way more flexibility. So let's go to the reports drop down. We're going to go to the sales item. We're going to take a look at the sales graph. So the sales graph. And then I'm going to change the date up top from 01/01/21 to 02/28/21 and hit the little blue OK button. And then we have our graph down below. This graph is by item. If I toggle over to by customer, we see our graph down below by customer. Now the default here is they break out 10 customers and put everything else into other. I believe that's 10 customers. And it's a 3D graph. We can't change the fact that it's 3D. We can't rotate it. We can't change the colors. It is what it is. If we want to do all those other things, we can then export the data, which this adds up to the 56,144 in the key. If I go to the sales by customer, we got that 56,144. If I export this data, let's then sort it by this data, and then we can do a lot more with it. Again, if you get this concept down, you can do this with many different database programs, not just QuickBooks. Anything you can export to Excel, you can put something into a graph, and that impresses people. So let's do it. So we're going to go ahead and export this. I'm going to export it to a file that has already been set up. If you have not set up a file, then you can export it to a new one. You obviously need Excel in order to do this. So I'm going to go to the Excel dropdown, create a new worksheet, and then we're going to put it into an existing workbook. In this practice problem, if you don't have one set up, you can create a new workbook. We're going to put it into the existing workbook where we have been saving all of our information here in the financial statement for February workbook. And then I'm just simply going to export that. So there we have it. I'm going to pull this tab all the way to the right, and there's going to be our data. This prior tab, I never named it, so I'm going to double click and name it. This is going to be an AR graph of some kind. And then I'm going to go back to it's actually by item. Then I'll go back to the prior, and this one we're going to create a sales by customer customer, let's just say graph. So there we have it, sales by customer graph. And then this, let's make this the data file, Excel data. This is the data file. So then let's do some customization. So I'm going to go to the layout tab. Let's go to the layout tab. We're going to open the layout tab. And just note, my objective here is to be able to print this whole Excel worksheet and have this data within it as well. So I want to make a graph that I can print it out in this Excel worksheet that will make all of my files in one PDF file that we can be providing to whoever we need to provide stuff to, supervisor or possibly a client or a customer. So then I'm going to go up top. We're going to go to the view. I'm going to get rid of the splits by unhighlighting the split. Then we're going to go back to the prior normal view. I'm going to delete the top item. I'm going to delete anything I don't need. Let's make it a little bit larger first. It's at 100. I'm going to make it larger, or you can hold down Control and make it larger by scrolling up on the mouse. I'm going to remove this column. I'm going to go on the one line, right click and delete. I'm going to do this fairly quickly because this is not an Excel course, but I'll try to talk through it as we go. Now here, if you have jobs, it can be a little bit confusing because notice we have a sub account of jobs that are within this line item. So really what I want is this total down here for the total jobs, and I don't want this sub categorization. So what I would do is just retype it in this line item. I want to hard code it, no formula, 1780. And then I'm going to remove 10 down to this total column. I don't want all the detail. I just want per customer. So I'm going to right click and delete the job. And so that looks good. I'm going to do the same thing here. So this is 2 jobs. So I'm going to say, all right, let's put it into 5280 is the total. So then I'm going to delete these 2 jobs. So we'll delete these 2 and delete. Okay, so now we've hard coded that one. We're at the total here. If I was to sum all this up, it's this total is not right. I'm going to select that, right click and delete the total. And then I'm going to select these items, and this comes out to 56,144. If I now go to here, 56,144. So I didn't mess anything up. It's still good. So then we can make basically our chart based on this information. Now note, this is kind of a long item. We have a lot of people we're selling to here. Also note, column B and C are kind of confusing things here because there's a sub column. I don't need column C. There's nothing in it. In other words, if I expand column B, C's blank. So I'm just I'm gonna remove, right click on C and delete it. I don't need this column A anymore. I'm gonna click on that, right click on it and delete column A. So I'm gonna right click and delete column A. And then I might say, hey, look, I want like the top people that we sell to here. So I don't want anything. So what I need to do then is order this. I need to order it by people that we sold the most to the least, and then I'm going to kind of remove the ones that are the least and put them into an other category so we don't have too many categories. We could do that by going and highlighting these 2 columns, going to data up top, and we could sort the data this way. Or I like to create a table, enter a table, so I'll select the data and then I'll add a table by going to insert, add a table, and then I'm going to say okay, and that kind of locks the data in place so I don't like mess it up, put the wrong total to the wrong person. It's less likely to do that. And it also gives you these nice little drop downs that I can say, okay, I want to sort it by this column, Z to A, largest to smallest. And then I can go down here and say, okay, how many people do I want? Maybe 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Maybe everything on down below that. Or let's say 10, 7, 8, 9, 10. Everything below that, I'm going to put into an other category. So within Starlee, I'm going to put other here, and then I'm going to sum these up. If I add these up, everything from other down adds up to 5730. So I'm going to replace this with 5730 and other, and remove all columns below that, which are now all included in the other column. Right click and I'll delete that. So there we have it. Now we don't have too much data for like a pie chart. So then we can create a pie chart from it, and I can just select these items. I don't want the header, and I don't want any total, and then just simply insert, and we will then go to the pie chart and add a pie chart. So there we have it. So then we can add the title here if we so choose, or we can delete that. So we still have kind of a lot of data. It's still a pretty extensive data. You can format this from here, do it a lot with a key and whatnot. I won't spend a lot of time, but that's how you can get started. You can rotate this, you can put it into different kinds of pie charts and whatnot, but I'll stop it here. Now, if I want this to show on my data, if I was to print all these reports to give them in one PDF file, I could then put this on top of the data, and then I can see this if I was to print this. If I was to print it then and go to File and Print, and I want to print the entire workbook now. If I was to print the entire workbook, let me go back. Sometimes I click on something else and then File, Print, and then I want to print the entire workbook. And then if you go through the entire workbook, we're on page number 16 or so, it should then show up and you can have just the numbers here. So now we've got the summary balance sheet, we've got the balance sheet, and then the comparative balance sheet. Then we have the income statement, the comparative income statement, and the vertical analysis. And here's all of our charts that we've been putting together. And the latest chart then on page 16, you can see it would be printed there, and you can print it all basically on one page or on one PDF file using the Qt PDF printer that way. So I can close this back out. I'm going to go back to this tab. Now, if I want to make it a little bit larger, I can fit it on the screen. I can make it larger here and fit it on the screen. I also might want to use a different method. I might say, well, I'd like to put it on a different page maybe. You could take this and say, I'm going to copy that and put it on a different page, and maybe I'll just paste it as a picture. And then you could say this is going to be the sales by customer graph Excel. So this would be the data file, and this would be the picture. I'll go over here, and then I could put a header right here on the graph. I won't do it now, so we can push forward. And I'm going to go back, and there it is. Then I can make this larger. And then again, if I want to have my data file then over here hidden, when I then print it out, I can right click on the data file and hide it. And then I can simply print all this out once again, putting it all on one PDF file. Even though I have the data tab in there and I don't want to include it, it'll be kind of hidden in there. Okay, so I'm going to click on this one and then this one and unhide, so you can see it all when we, if you have access to this file. So unhide that and say OK. Now we could do a similar process if we were to break out this information by item. So if we go to the sales graph and I say I want to break it out by item now. So now it's by item. Where can we get that data? We can go to the reports drop down. We can go to the sales. We can go to the sales by item summary. So now we want the sales by item summary report. Changing the dates up top from 01/01/21 to 02/28/21. And so we're looking at this column. This is the column we basically want here. Let's export that one. And then we can just adjust this and make our pie chart from it. So I can go Excel. We want to create a new worksheet. And I like to have the worksheet closed. So I'm actually going to close this out. And then I want to save. And then I'll open it back up when we do this process. It's going to go to an existing workbook. And this is the one we want. That's the one. So same one. I'm going to say that's the one. And then export that. So I'm going to pull this one to the right. And so I'm going to say this is a sales by item graph in Excel. And then we'll edit this one. So I'm going to go to the next tab. We'll do this a little bit more quickly. I'm going to say OK. And so there's our splits. I want to remove the splits. So I'm going to go View up top. And Windows, remove the splits. I'm going to get rid of the headers because I might just want to call it basically a graph. So headers gone. Back to the normal view. And now I just really want this column here. So I'm going to remove everything else. I don't need these headers. So I'm going to delete these at least. Delete that. And then I'm going to delete this column. Don't need this column. Let's see if this is a formula. No, these are hard-coded numbers. So I don't need these two columns. I'll just delete those, and I'll delete all of this. Don't need that. Right-click, delete. Now, this subcategory of inventory versus service, you could make your own pie chart here. I could say these are basically the service items. If you want to know a pie chart of the service items, you can say insert, and then have a pie chart of just these items. And that would be pie chart of the things that we sell that are service items. Or you can basically group them together and have the inventory and service items. So you got more flexibility to do that. Let's group them together like we saw in the one that's in QuickBooks. So I can delete this row. I don't want that subcategory. I don't want the totals. Let's remove the totals. Delete those. And then I don't need these two. Let's delete these. And then I'll make this a little larger, holding Control, and then scrolling up so we can see it. This underline is not necessary, so I'm going to remove the underline, just get rid of the border. All right, so that looks pretty good. If I highlight this, it adds up to 56,144. If I go back to QuickBooks, it still adds up to 56,144, so I didn't mess anything up in terms of the total, at least. I could have messed other stuff up. Now I want to order it from top to bottom, so I could say, okay, I could do that by highlighting these two cells, data, and then we could order it using this format. I like to make a table though, so I'll typically highlight the data and then go to insert table and then okay, and that makes it less likely that I mess up the sorting, lining up the number to the wrong area. So then I'm going to sort A to Z. So there we have that. And then again, we might just want the first 10. So I might say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And then from here down, other. So I'm going to make this one other. And then I'll highlight these. That adds up to 2340. So 2340. And then I'm just going to remove rows 12 to 14. Right click on them and delete them. Don't need those. I don't need these two columns, A and B. I'm going to right click on those and delete those. And then we just simply highlight what we have here and then go to the insert, and we want to make a pie chart, and we'll just make another pie chart. So there we go. And like these are some long descriptions we have here, so we could adjust the key and whatnot to try to make this make the pie chart a little bit larger. But once again, if you put it over the top of the data, then that's one way that you can print it out, or you can put it into another page. I'll let you see the data, so when you look at the chart, you can see it side by side here. And so there we have that. Obviously, you could make a pie chart on, you could make a bar chart as well with any of this data. So I could select this data, and I could go to Insert and add a column type graph. So it would look like this, and we can format that one. Maybe I don't need the title here. Maybe I want to put it on its own page and then title the whole page or something like that. So there's that. Just some examples of how we can sort this, and then you can go into an Excel course or whatever and think about how you can manipulate these graphs. Make in this case, of course, make this smaller so that you can see the graph better. So reduce the key and whatnot. So I won't get into that now. So, but once you have these formatted, once you have the data from QuickBooks, you can do a whole bunch of things, way more stuff within Excel than you could in just a static graph that you would be reporting or generating from the QuickBooks system.